Good day, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and I take the opportunity to thank Hélène and the organizer for the opportunity to give this talk. And I'm going to share right now my screen with you. And let's talk about food contact surfaces and water testing in a 21st century pandemic. The pandemic has brought a new normal. It's a whole new world to us. Physical distancing is the new norm. Online business is the new business. Home is the place to study and work. It has changed the global economic landscape. But let's look as well to the bright side. So this has improved the use of information and communication technologies. There are reduction of CO2 and other pollution emission, and this has enhanced the family life. And we can be proud about the global scientific and industrial response. And let's take a look at what is going on in industrial microbiology. And I will start with food contact surfaces monitoring. There are some facts about the transmission route and the contamination of COVID-19. So direct transmission from human to human is recognized as the main route of contamination. However, stability of COVID-19 on various surfaces have been reported, and transmission of the virus from contaminated surfaces might be possible. And it's clear that some food industrial segments have faced contamination among co-workers, and in that respect, emergency response were set up to support the hygiene monitoring in a key industry, because food industry is really key. So let's have a look first to introduce the topic at this publication on interregional COVID-19 spread from a single introduction outbreak in meat packing plants, so in the US. While most of viral introduction were contained with only minor transmission chain, a striking exception was an outbreak associated with meat packing plant in Postville in Iowa. And you can see that on the phylogenetic tree, and here you've got the isolated strain from the contaminated worker from this production plant, and in this case a single viral introduction led to unrestrained spread within this facility, affecting the staff and members of this plant. So very quickly, CDC has provided guidelines to control and to monitor meat and poultry processes facilities. And finally, CDC advised to run really HACCP, so very well-known procedure in production plant. And the approach group action by the effectiveness in reducing or removing hazards in the production plant all among the processes. And it's advised to install engineering control, implement appropriate cleaning, sanitation, and disinfection procedure to reduce the exposure of the workers and to really eliminate the hazard at each step of the processes. And then method developer like Thermo Fisher Scientific have developed some method to detect SARS-CoV-2 in the food production environment and to evaluate the efficiency of the sanitation processes, the cleaning procedure in the production environment, and to control and monitor the contamination. So I will describe here our workflow as an example, just to really illustrate the way it's going on. And there are 3 steps. The first one is sampling and transport, then you've got the sample preparation, and then PCR and data analysis. When we have set up this workflow, we were really facing issue in the supply chain with viral transport medium. And clearly, the VTM were dedicated to clinical clinical analysis. So we decided to offer flexibility because we were afraid that the food business operator won't be able to get VTM on site. So, and finally, it's possible to run the sampling and transport using VTM, of course, but as well PBS. A second flexibility in the workflow is the use of two possible platforms to run the RNA extraction, and you know that this is the critical part when you are dealing with coronavirus detection. So two platforms have been set up in this workflow, so it's possible to select one of them, and finally you can get flexibility as well at this step. And the last one about PCR and data analysis, finally, it's possible to run the method on two thermocyclers as well, and this is done to ensure broad access to the developed workflow. The data interpretation is linked to risk analysis and HACCP management, so using PCR result. But again, COVID-19 is not a born outbreak. The objective here is really to control contamination and to avoid cross-contamination between co-workers in the environment. So when you've got a clear positive signal, so if you know PCR, so it's a low CT value. In fact, it's of course of high risk, and we advise to employ full hygiene intervention strategy. When you've got a weak PCR positive signal, so high CT value, of course, then it's of lower risk, and we advise to use a risk assessment to employ appropriate hygiene intervention strategy, and even to consider if it's needed or not. And of course, when you've got a negative PCR, so it's full dot, end of the story, you've got nothing to put in place. So in parallel to the method development, AOEC International has activated an accelerated program to evaluate the test kit for detecting the coronavirus on surface. And AOEC has really decided to play a role in public health and to drive innovation and to clearly evaluate the test kits dedicated to monitor the contamination of COVID-19 in the production plan. And so this is usually done with classical, so what we call the foodborne pathogen. But anyway, in that respect, it's really to support the food industry to take the appropriate measure to control the virus dissemination. So the study design was set up with various experts coming from the US FDA, as well the EPA organization in the US, or academia and CDC, of course, with the support with one Chinese expert from a Chinese custom district. The first objective was to select a reference method, and they have evaluated different protocols, and they decided to combine the WHO procedure for the sampling step to the detection coming from the CDC protocol. You've got the details here on the slide. I don't want to bother you too much with technical details. So the reference method was verified in an expert lab based in Missouri, MRI Global. So they have run everything to make sure they are running the reference method in a proper way. And they have set up as well the matrix study. So they were using stainless steel surfaces and inoculated these surfaces with infectious viruses. So it's a non-paired data study, so a set of samples were prepared for the reference method and a set of samples were prepared for the candidate method. For each set of samples, you've got 5 blank replicates, 20 replicates providing fractional recovery, and 5 replicates inoculated higher level, just to be able, with this study design, to calculate the probability of detection for both methods. So when the stainless steel were prepared, So one set stay at global MRI to be analyzed with the reference method, and the other set was shipped to the testing laboratory to run the candidate method. I will first present the first step of this emergency response validation. So usually you are running a wet lab testing for inclusivity and exclusivity, but in that case, there were so many genomes available on the global data bank that it was decided to use an in silico analysis to assess the quality of the primers, the probes, but as well the PCR condition of the different methods. So 7 methods were submitted and 6 of them were validated among the AOEC global, so emergency response validation scheme. So you've got here 5 methods in addition to the Thermo Fisher Scientific workflow. So most of the method developers were testing the 15,764 genome that should be assessed according to the AOEC guidelines. Another method developer provided additional data coming to their R&D development. It was clear that for all these 6 methods, the quality was there regarding the inclusivity panel. In addition, 65 relevant genomes were assessed in the exclusivity panel just to make sure there cannot be any cross-reaction. For some of the methods, I think there was a need for additional wet lab testing in this exclusivity panel just to make sure that everything was okay. So let's have a look now to the study, the matrix study outcome. You know, the stainless steel inoculated at global MRI in Missouri, analyzed with the reference method and the candidate method. You've got the outcome here with the difference between the probability of detection of the reference method and the detection method. And you see here very low value with the confidence interval around the value for all the methods, including the 4 Thermo Fisher workflow that were submitted to the validation studies. I'm talking about 4 workflow because we have used the most challenging condition for the surface sampling and the sample delivery with PBS, but we have run as well the 2 extraction protocols that are possible and use the 2 thermocycler instruments in this validation program. So you can see for the 6 methods, so I mean for Thermo Fisher for workflow, everything was running really well and the methods were validated. I take the opportunity to thank FSNS in Texas because we have used a third-party laboratory as well to run the candidate method just to make sure about the robustness and finally to show that everything is going well within the hand of a routine testing laboratory. And we can be very proud about the data because you can see that there was a kind of temperature abuse. So unfortunately, the sample arrived at 16 degrees at FSNS, while the condition usually to deliver and to store this sample is between 2 and 8 degrees. But anyway, everything ran really well and the method was validated. I would like to thank AOEC for having set up this emergency response validation. To us, it's a globally recognized third-party evaluation that confirms the method performance. And this is bringing more confidence to the end user and of course to the food safety authorities. We are proud to work with AOEC. So that's the case for this workflow to detect COVID-19 in the food production environment, but for all the methods we are providing on the market in food testing. So it's clear that this emergency response is unique to AOEC. I don't know any other certification bodies operating in food microbiology able to set up this type of response. AOEC has strongly helped the food industry to better evaluate the control measure against COVID-19 contamination, so together with the method developer. So, Microval, another certification body which is based in Europe, decided to provide an expert opinion about the AOEC emergency response. I'm part of the AOEC board of directors. I'm part as well of Microval, and I have to say I'm really proud to be part of this organization, global organization. And Microval provided this expert opinion after an evaluation of several months. And it's clear that for this expert, Microval expert, they have a full confidence in what was developed by AOEC within the study design, the interpretation of the data, and they provide their full support to the AOEC initiative. So we can really talk about a success story there. That's it for the first part on environmental surfaces monitoring to support one key industry, so the food industry. So let's move now to water testing and what was going on and what is still going on during this challenging time. I will start again with a publication here on the presence of the vitality. With vitality, we mean effectiveness of SARS-CoV-2 in wastewater and rivers. It's a publication from almost 1 year ago, and in fact 3 wastewater treatment plants were tested together with 2 river samples in the Milano metropolitan area. You've got 2 cities there, Milano and Monza, and you can see the daily relative cases in March and April last year. And the sampling was done around Easter in these 2 dates. So the samples were tested for their positivity using real-time RT-PCR for COVID-19, but as well the effectiveness of the virus. And of course, after that, whole genome sequencing was run to run phylogenetic analysis. There are 3 key points, 3 main conclusions in that study. The first one is that raw wastewater resulted positive PCR amplification, while treated water samples were always negative. And this is a very good point. We are able to eliminate the virus within the treatment processes. Samples from receiving rivers showed in some couple of cases positive PCR amplification, and this is probably due to non-treated discharge or combined sewage overflows. But the effectiveness of the virus was negligible at that time, indicated that there is no risk in terms of public health. And the last point is about the phylogenetic analysis. And it's clearly showing that at that time, the virus, the strain that were isolated belong in all the cases to the most important cluster. So isolated in Europe 1 year ago around Easter. So I'm pretty sure things have changed and we are moving right now to the new variant we are all talking about at the global level, like the UK one, for instance. From this study, it's clear that tracking COVID-19 in wastewater is a reliable indicator for supporting the prevention and the management of the pandemic. And in that respect, the European Commission is providing as well some guidelines, and you can see here on this slide, for the surveillance of wastewater. It's clear it's a cheap and reliable tool to track the virus presence. And it's easy to correlate the quantities of COVID-19 found in wastewater with the number of persons infected in the corresponding area. And there are 3 key possible action. The first one is preventive and an early warning tool. Of course, if you detect a virus, it means that you've got an emergence or a re-emergence of the pandemic. It's as well a management tool when there is no virus in wastewater that could indicate easily that the corresponding zone is of low risk. And the last point is about safety net. So if the virus is not detected in wastewater, but you've got positive detection in the If the virus is detected in wastewater while it's not the case in the population, of course you have to run investigation and root cause analysis because there is something missing in the possible correlation. How is it organized in Europe? In fact, right now, you've got national organization, a network of testing laboratories were set up. These labs are mainly using in-house method. Again, we are talking about network around several countries in Europe. There is no method validation framework as previously shown with the AOC emergency response. The quantitative PCR is, of course, the most relevant technique, enabling to correlate, again, the level of contamination between wastewater and the contamination within the population. So when I'm talking about network, I think they set up something in a very urgent and short manner. I provide two illustrations here with the French OBP network or the Dutch network for the surveillance of water regarding COVID-19. To me, it's most likely that the authorities will certainly ask as well for a kind of validation or, let's say, quality assessment of the method that are used to assess or to run the surveillance of wastewater. The same approach is going on in the US with the National Wastewater Surveillance System, and you can read here the CDC recommendation again with a copy-paste from the CDC website, and here again the CDC workflow on the right side of the slide, and CDC is as well recommending the use of quantitative PCR, and this is making sense, of course, to correlate the contamination of wastewater with the contamination of the population in the same area. So let's move to the last point. So we are talking now about food testing. So after monitoring the production environment in the food industry, monitoring wastewater, what is going on regarding food products themselves. At the end of 2020, China required to test food for coronavirus and to accept food importation in China. So it's clear, I provide here several illustrations with the poultry side. China requires importing cold chain food to undergo nucleic acid test before sales. And you've got other things here on another website about even food packaging. And here then public health bodies started to provide their opinion about the request from China on the cold chain food and frozen food regarding possible transmission of the virus. In China as well, at the same time, they have even developed a national standard that is shown on this slide. You've got the front page of the standard, the CAQI standard. The title is Sampling and Real-Time RT-PCR Assay for Detection of SARS-CoV-2 in Food and Food Packaging Surface. So you've got a reference method in China in that respect, and to run food testing for COVID-19 detection. But for public health bodies, so I mean at a global level, like the World Health Organization, WHO, for instance, they have provided their position regarding this type of request. So WHO, as previously stated, neither food nor packaging are known transmission routes for the virus. And it's the same for the CDC. Look, the last day of 2020, here is a post from CDC on their website. So currently there is no evidence to suggest that handling food or consuming food is associated with COVID-19. So it's clear that there is no consensus at the moment about the risk associated to food and possible transmission about the virus in that respect. So let's see how the thing will move on. But myself, I've got the feeling, checking the website, that the things are cooling down regarding the China request. To conclude this talk, so I provided several illustrations on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on analytical sciences, so with illustration in industrial microbiology. And to me, the pandemic is bringing out the best of science. Sharing data enables scientists to develop emergency response to support public health and key industrial segments. And this was very well illustrated to the emergency response to support the food industry, to monitor the environment, and to put all the procedure in place to ensure that there won't be any contamination between co-workers. So just to make sure that everything is set up in a proper way in the production plan. So surge capacity has been developed to deal with an unbelievable daily influx of publication and data, while at the same time ensuring quality. And it's clear in that perspective. The second point is not about industrial microbiology anymore. The momentous drive to discover a vaccine and control the pandemic is another trend. And never before we had so many scientists around the world focusing at the same time on the single topic and with such an urgency. And clearly, it's unbelievable what we were able to achieve and what we are still able to achieve to face the pandemic. This is the end of my talk. I would like to thank you for your attention, and of course I'm happy to get your questions if you've got any. So thank you so much.